Hey, what's up everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So, today we are continuing my fantasy heavyweight tournament rankings as we're going to look at my number 14 heavyweight based on my point system, the former unified cruiserweight champion of the world and former WBA heavyweight champion David Haye, the Haymaker from the United Kingdom. Before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So, again, the tournament is coming. We just got to get through all these videos breaking down the fighters in the tournament. I will give a rules and regulations video, also talk about my point system and how I came to the conclusions that I did for these heavyweights. So David Haye, you know, in heavyweight title fights, the guy only competed in 4 of them, you know, but he made a big impact very fast. Now we look at, you know, we're going to look at what he's done, what he did coming in to that time period. So, David Haye started off as a cruiserweight. You know, he was a decent cruiserweight. He suffered a loss that was a setback to Carl Thompson, back in, I think it was 2004, but he bounced back with a few victories. And then most notably at the end of 2006, he stopped an undefeated cruiserweight named Giacobi Fragomeni. I think Fragomeni went on to win a cruiserweight title as well, but he stopped him. And 2 fights later, in November of 2007, he would get an opportunity against unified champion Jean-Marc Mormec. Mormec had won the unified title. He had competed for the undisputed title against O'Neal Bell a couple years earlier. Mormec was a legit cruiserweight, and he was the #1 cruiserweight in the world at the time. And David Haye went out there and dominated him. Actually, no, he got put down in the 4th round, but then bounced back and stopped Mormec in the 7th round impressively and became the unified cruiserweight champion, just like that. Then in March of 2008, he attempted to unify belts against Enzo Massarinielli, who was the WBO champion, and he would dominate Massarinielli with a 2nd round stoppage win as he unified 3 of the 4 belts at cruiserweight and was the top dog with no doubts at 200 pounds. After that, he wanted to make a move to heavyweight. So 8 months later, he stepped in the ring against former world title challenger and a very good kind of gatekeeper, Monty Barrett. Barrett was a good heavyweight. He wasn't a great one, but he was good, he was solid, and he could get in there. And he was a perfect opponent for David Haye to test himself at heavyweight. And David Haye would pass the test with flying colors. He would pick apart Monty Barrett, stopping him in only 5 rounds. And that punched his ticket to a world title shot. Because 1 year later, in November of 2009, he would challenge the Russian giant Nikolai Valuev, who was 7 feet tall. David Haye at 6'3" was going to challenge a very big man, and after only 1 fight at heavyweight, Valuev was over 300 pounds. So this was a huge test for David Haye right here. And there was some people that thought maybe he could do it, and others that thought Valuev was just too big. And I honestly thought Valuev would be just too big for him. But he went out there and boxed Valuev, landed right hands periodically, but boxed and moved and did a great job of fending off the Russian giant, and would walk away with a close majority decision victory and become the WBA heavyweight champion of the world. Big win right here. And that led to 5 months later, he would defend his title against former 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, John the Quiet Man Ruiz. And if there was ever a good test for him to legitimize himself after the upset of Valuev, it was going to be against Ruiz, because Ruiz had that hold and hit style that he would employ. But David Haye became the first and only man to knock out John Ruiz in a title fight, as he dominated the fight, picked apart John Ruiz, and stopped him in 9 rounds and ended John Ruiz's career. So that was a big win right there. He legitimized himself. Then 7 months later, he would defend his title the 2nd time against fellow British fighter former Olympic gold medalist Audley Harrison, who was considered a bust, and he went out there and proved that Harrison wasn't on his level as he destroyed Audley Harrison with a 3rd round TKO and punched his ticket for a major unification title fight in July of 2011 when he would attempt to unify belts against IBF WBO unified champ Vladimir Klitschko, who was also the #1 heavyweight in the world at the time. The two, Haye, though, coming into this fight, was widely considered the #3 heavyweight in the world behind the Klitschko brothers. So another fighter on this list that was in the Klitschko era and was able to call himself the #3 heavyweight in the world, which is a significant accomplishment in the Klitschko era, mind you. He came in against Klitschko. It was a big build fight. A lot of people weren't sure what they were going to see in this one, but he went out there and weathered the storm. He weathered the storm in terms of getting knocked out cold, because there was a lot of people predicting that too. But he could not pull the trigger in this fight. He was reluctant to pull the trigger and allow Klitschko to dictate the pace with the jab. He later cited an ankle injury or something like that. But he went on to lose a convincing 12-round unanimous decision in this fight and dropped the WBA belt. He would never return to the title form. He would fight 5 more times, impressively knocking out Derek Chisora in his return bout. Then he would retire for 3.5 years. He returned in 2016, knocked out Mark Demori, actually a guy that we just saw get knocked out against Filip Hrgovic on the Day of Reckoning card last year. Then knocked out an undefeated unknown opponent, and then finished his career with 2 showdowns with Tony Bellew, losing the first one by 11th round TKO, citing a knee injury. That was the reason he lost that fight. And then in the rematch, he got stopped again by Tony Bellew by a 5th round TKO. But to sum up David Haye as a heavyweight, I mean, he made a huge splash and moved to #3 in the world at heavyweight. And there were a lot of people that thought he could beat Vladimir Klitschko. His explosive right hand, he had a huge heavyweight punch. He had speed, good hand speed, and was a decent boxer and could move. And that's why he was able to beat Nikolay Valuev. Only 4 title fights, he went 3-1. His lone loss was to Vladimir Klitschko, who's the #1 heavyweight on our list. Not bad. And his wins, his 3 title fight wins, he ended the career of Nikolay Valuev. Valuev never fought again after he lost to him. And Valuev's the #8 heavyweight. And then he destroyed and knocked out John Ruiz, who, for the better part of a decade, was a significant heavyweight player and a 2-time heavyweight champion. So for David Haye, big accomplishments, in what he was able to pull off in a short time frame. And he was also the 3rd best heavyweight in the world behind the Klitschko brothers for a time there, which is significant. He did try to unify belts against Vladimir, so it's not like he didn't try to do that. David Haye, I'm interested in seeing how he does. His style was a tough one, and his power was true heavyweight. So I'm really looking forward to seeing who he fights and what he can pull off in this tournament and what fans think. So that's it. That's what I got. That's my number 14 heavyweight for my interactive fantasy heavyweight tournament. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.